And can we give another warm hand to my good friend and longtime friend of 20 years, Senator Morrissey. I was a little unsure where to come this evening, and then I saw these Henry Marsh for Senate signs out there. Henry, is there a primary on the 23rd of August? It's great to be here. You know, I'm pleased that Bill introduced me as Joe Morrissey. You know, I spent some time away. I was in Ireland, I was in Australia, and I remember coming back once in the airport, and I was coming through the Richmond International Airport, and I saw some people that I was walking towards, and you could see that they had something was going around in their mind, and the lady is like, didn't you used to be Joe Morrissey? Yeah, I did used to be. You know, Henry said something really important about what we face this year, and he talked about the Tea Party folks. Well, he had the luxury of being in the Senate where they were in the majority. But, I mean, in the House, we fought them every single day. Our numbers were down. We only had 39 members in the House. But every day in caucus, I'm the minority whip of the Democratic caucus, we said we only lose if we don't make them, if we don't fight them every single day on the issues. And I'm telling you, there were some strange bills that came in that defied logic. There were bills that came in that were patently unconstitutional. In the House, we have what's known as a gray sheet. If a bill gets a gray sheet, that means that the legislative services had said, this bill is unconstitutional. Didn't make any difference to the Republicans. Introduced it anyway. And they did that continuously. Bills like, and a bill that said if you're stopped, if you're detained by the police and are about to be arrested, the police can ask, what country of origin are you from? And then we said, what does that have to do, their country of origin or their tinge of their skin, as to whether or not a crime was committed? But there were those bills that were passed. There were bills that were passed that said, if you were born in the United States, if you finished #1 in your class, if you were born, you're a citizen, of course. But if your parents weren't born in here and weren't legal citizens, you couldn't go to the college of your choice. I mean, it got to be so patently mean-spirited that we, as Democrats in the House, sometimes could only, wring our hands. We wanted to wring their necks, but we couldn't. But we fought them every day, and fortunately, we had a Senate that could deal with some of these bills when they came up there. But, at the end of the day, we did do some things that I thought were very positive in the House. I'm one of those people that believes that there's folks out there that don't have a voice, and we got to stand up and we got to be their voice. I have nothing against the Dominions and the Verizons and the big insurance companies. They're wonderful. And they got a cadre of lobbyists there that even when they lose, they don't lose. But there's a group of people there, and whether it's single-issue groups, people like the Sierra Club, people whose children have autism spectrum disorder, people who are physically challenged or intellectually challenged, they have no voice. And there's myself and several of us were their voice in the House of Delegates, and we got some good things done. We set aside $30 million in a trust fund for people who had... We did frustrating, I know. Don't worry. $30 million for people who were intellectually challenged to create MR waiver spots. We set aside $2.9 million for drug courts. I remember, the Republicans wanted to cut out the drug court program. And, I remember giving one of my floor speeches, and I said, help me out on this, R's. You want to cut back on money, so you think, let's take $2.9 million out of this program. It costs $42,000 to incarcerate somebody. But if you send them to a drug court, after 2 years and going through regular urinalysis tests, they have to remain employed, they get that monkey of addiction off their back, and they become productive citizens, as opposed to going to jail and coming out and still being an addict. And I asked them, what's wrong with spending $4,000 a year and saving a soul, or spend $42,000 a year and the person is still an addict? We were able to keep that drug court money in there. And we got something accomplished that we haven't been able to do in 11 years. And that was we got an autism spectrum disorder funding bill. Those parents that have children with autism, ages 2 to 6, will now have insurance coverage if they have an employer with 50 or more. And what we got was the first Christmas tree to hang other ornaments on it, but it was things like that, I think the Democrats in the House that were watching out for some of the people that perhaps didn't have a voice. And I'm not one of those guys that think that government is the solution to everything, but when it does come to the have-nots, yeah, we do have to watch out for them. And it's the Democrats in the House that kept fighting for automatic restoration of rights. We kept fighting for restorative justice issues, and we're going to continue to do that. I remember, talking about some of these crazy bills. I remember the first day of the General Assembly session. The governor had just signed an order allowing people to bring guns into state parks. I remember the very first day I stood up and, can be a little cheeky now and then. And I said, Governor, I'm really feeling safe now, knowing that when I go into a state park where kids are walking and hiking and fishing, that somebody's carrying a Glock 9. Wonderful, Governor. What's next? Guns in churches?
Yeah.
The very last day of the session, our Attorney General opined. He said, I issued an opinion saying, yeah, if you're going into a church and you think that your life is threatened or you need self-defense, you ought to be able to bring a gun into that church. And I said two things. I said, Governor, I was just kidding about the guns in churches. And second, if you think you need a gun in a church, you probably got to reconsider whether you have the right church. But those were the things that we were fighting. And this is why. Because they stood up there, and as Henry said, they were not considerate of the electorate out there. They were thinking of their own base. Not worried about a general election coming up, they're worried about a primary. In a general election, they have redistricted and continue to redistrict in a way that made it entirely non-competitive, so they're only worried about a primary. And so in order to defeat somebody in that primary, they would pander to that base. And when it came to religiosity, when it came to guns, when it came to not giving some of the have-nots of the world a second chance, they were all over that because they know they were pandering to the base. And we Democrats in the House fought that, and we also worked with my friends like Henry in the Senate to fight them. But we all know, I think, probably the thing that was most, I guess discouraging is what I saw at the end of the session, and that was the redistricting. It was a disgrace. Now, the first thing is, the Democrats did it for 100 years and they were wrong then, but in the House, what they did was outrageous. They looked and they said, we're not going to touch any of these majority-minority districts because we don't want to invite DOJ scrutiny. But when they could stick the knife in and turn it, they did. And they gutted our minority leaders district. Half a dozen Democrats had been there a long time and were good folks. They put the knife to them and they decimated their districts. And I'm one of those people that believe that, you don't, as an incumbent, pick the district or pick the people that you want to represent. It's the other way around. They should be picking you. And the R's just didn't get it in the House. But what's going to happen is this. We're going to come back in the House. We're going to come back stronger because I get a feeling that the people get it. They know what's going on. They're aware. And there's not a group that I talk to, and I was in several schools today, even the high school students are aware of it. They know that what went on, was mean-spirited. And it has a way of coming back and biting you, and I think that's what's going to happen. And let me end by saying this. We have lots of important races coming up this year, of course, the state legislature, the state senate, but the big race is next year in 2012. And that's when we're going to re-elect our president, President Obama. The only mistake that the president made was not. Did anybody remember the movie Cool Hand Luke?
Yes.
Great movie.
Yeah.
I think Paul Newman was in it, and he was. Pardon me? Yeah. There's a scene there when he's talking to one of the guards, and the guard says something like, "What we have here is a failure to communicate." only problem that the Democratic administration made, I think, in the 2010 elections is not highlighting what they did. Think about this. Think about this. Our president came in 2008. We were losing, hemorrhaging 500,000 jobs a month. 500,000 a month. Right now, we're gaining 100,000. We came in and he put in this bail stimulus plan, $804 billion that saved this country from a second Great Depression. There's no question about it. Ask any neutral economist and they'll tell you he saved this country from a Great Depression. I actually think that'll be his greatest legacy. But he went on and passed the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, the Hate Crimes Act, and he got something done that we weren't able to do, any president wasn't able to do in 80 years. And that's get the Patient Protection and Affordable Health Care Act passed. I'm frequently asked, to debate, to represent the D's when they're debating that. And I ask people, what exactly is wrong with making sure that 35 million Americans that heretofore had no insurance get insurance? Or that 120,000 Virginia children are insured? Or that we allow tax credits for businesses to buy health care insurance? Or to, the worst thing, not deny somebody coverage because of a pre-existing condition? What's going on right now is cathartic, going through the courts, and there's no question that we're going to be successful. We've had three district courts in the United States rule that it was unconstitutional, 2 not, and it's going up to the Court of Appeals, various circuits, and then ultimately the Supreme Court. It's not a bad thing that that's happening. Like I said, it's a process to get that done, but at the end of the day, we're going to get that bill passed. And it's not, when I think of it, I think of what we Democrats have accomplished. When we look at some of the acts that we have gotten passed, the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, Social Security, Medicaid, some of the greatest trophies in any free worlds we've got done, and this is going to be the same thing. So we've got a big battle coming up. I'm delighted to see so many Chesterfield County Democrats here today. Henry, you think there's another reason that they might be coming out tonight? Other than to support D's across the board. And I'm going to support, all the Democrats in the House and the Senate. It is crucial, like Henry said, that we maintain a majority in the state Senate. It is our only firewall. So thank you for allowing me to come and share some of my thoughts on what we've done in the House and what we're going to continue to do in the House, and look forward to meeting you in the future. Thank you.